all. Bills can win it here. White puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. They win it 41-38. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills.
Jacksonville's perfect record on the line right here.
They put in Williams as the fullback, and he scores a touchdown, the 12th year defensive tackle.
And the fans are all over the field. Incredible. This place is pandemonium.
Welcome to another episode of Disguised Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I am Anthony. I'm your host here on Disguised Coverage. Find Disguised Coverage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, a multitude of podcasting content creation platforms. Whatever platform you're using to listen to Disguised Coverage or watch Disguised Coverage, while you're there, please rate and review and subscribe. Smash the like button. I know all that kind of stuff is a bit corny at times, but it is tremendously, tremendously helpful and greatly appreciated. As I mentioned, Disguised Coverage is part of the Cover One Sports Network. So while you're there, checking out Disguised Coverage, listening and downloading and rating and reviewing and subscribing and pledging your undying allegiance and signing the blood oath, check out all the other great content from Cover One. You've got the Cover One podcast with Greg and Aaron. You've got the Hoof podcast with Sterling and Eric and Anthony Romeo. And then you've got awesome film breakdowns from Eric Turner, the godfather of Cover One. Again, Cover One has you covered, pun, every single day of the week, basically, when it comes to Buffalo Bills content and breakdowns and analysis, all of those things. Again, I am Anthony, host here on Disguised Coverage. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2 underscores ANT. Give me a follow on Twitter, or if follows are not your thing, I'll gladly accept the one ring to rule them all, forged in the flames of Mount Doom in Mordor. Again, whichever's easier, follow, one ring to rule them all. I'm not really picky, so, pick your poison, whatever's good for you. In this episode, as titled, Know Thy Enemy, Buffalo Bills versus Denver Broncos, we're going to get into some matchups for the Bills' big game this weekend, this Saturday night, 4:30, kind of prime time-ish, against the Denver Broncos, a game that will see the Buffalo Bills win the AFC East for the first time since 1995 if they beat those said Denver Broncos. It's a big game for a multitude of reasons, playoff seeding, AFC positioning, but just to know that if the Bills win, they will be crowned AFC East champs for the first time in a very, very, very long time. And in the spirit of that, before we get into some breakdowns, I wanted to go back to some things that were going on back in 1995 when the Bills last won the AFC East title. Also, I just want to mention, I love the live streams. I love the video. I love the engagement. Last several weeks, the engagement has been tremendous. So questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, philosophies, theorems, maxims, ideologies, whatever, throw them up in the comments as they come to your brain. I try to get to every single one of them by the end of the episode. If I don't get to it right there in the moment, don't fret. I will do my best to get to it. And I usually do. So keep that in mind. I love that aspect of the video stream here. So again, as it shows here on the bottom, if you're watching live or on the live stream or on the video, back in 1995, when the Bills last won the AFC East title, they won it specifically on December 17th, 1995. So I looked up things that were going on in the world around that time. Some top movies that had come out and that were killing it. We have Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Val Kilmer. Amazing, amazing movie. I don't even want to speak about it or give spoilers. If you've seen it, you know it's great. If you haven't, you need to. Watch it after this. Don't watch it now. Keep watching Disguised Coverage. Don't leave. Also, the original Jumanji with Robin Williams came out in December of 1995, and so did Father of the Bride 2 with Steve Martin. So fun facts, good times there. The number one song on the Billboard Top 100 was One Sweet Day by Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men. Josh Allen wasn't born yet. Stephon Diggs was 2. The top 4 rated shows, according to the Nielsen ratings, were ER at number 1, Seinfeld at number 2, Friends at number 3, and Caroline in the City at number 4. I don't know what Caroline in the city is. Also, fun fact, the 5th top-rated show was Monday Night Football. Illegal contact wasn't yet a rule in the NFL, and you were still allowed to hit people quite violently. Brett Favre won the MVP. Fun fact here, even more fun than the rest of the facts that I've given out here. Bryce Paup, in his first year with the Buffalo Bills, won Defensive Player of the Year. He had 17.5 sacks. He led the league in sacks that year. Bruce Smith that year had 10.5 sacks. Phil Hansen had 10. The Buffalo Bills collectively led the league in sacks that year. Curtis Martin was the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Hugh Douglas was the Defensive Rookie of the Year. So a couple fun facts there in 1995 when the Bills last won the AFC East crown. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming. And this week, the opponent that the Buffalo Bills face are the Denver Broncos, a team that currently sits at 5-8. Their wins have come against the New York Jets, the New England Patriots, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Miami Dolphins, the Carolina Panthers. Their losses have come to the Titans, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, the Chiefs, the Falcons, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Chiefs once again. I know they're 5-8, but, and this may just be my overly logistical brain or my Buffalo paranoid brain, I'm not looking past Denver. I don't think we should. I think they're going to be a tougher out than anticipated. And I know they're banged up, and I know they've got some tendencies that make them extremely vulnerable in certain areas, which we're going to get into. But do not take this game lightly. I think the good news and the good thing about the Bills and a Sean McDermott-led team is that they won't take Denver lightly, and they shouldn't. Denver has a couple wins under their belt that people weren't expecting them to pull off. And I know at this point of the year, it may seem like they're a bad team or they're kind of, limping into this game. And actually a good comment here from the Newport 200. They played the Chiefs tough. They did play the Chiefs tough. They dang near pulled off an upset against the Kansas City Chiefs. They played them tough. Even in their losses, a couple of them are really skewed because Drew Locke was out for those games, including the game where their entire quarterback staff had COVID and had to be quarantined. So they were playing with a wide receiver at quarterback against the New Orleans Saints. They've had a couple games where they've played hard and they've been close in terms of the final score. And they're not a horrible team. I don't think we should overlook them. There's a possibility that they could pull the upset. I think this is a game the Bills should win. But again, don't overlook them. We're going to start here with Drew Locke and the Denver offense. And I wanted to start with Drew Locke and the Denver offense. One, because the offensive side of the football for Denver against the Bills defense is a very important matchup because it's quite a huge part of the game. But two, Drew Locke is someone who in the offseason was gaining a lot of traction in certain communities, especially on the old Twitter, about how great of a year that he was going to have. He was being talked about in the same circles and sentences as Josh Allen, as being a better quarterback than Josh Allen. Denver Bronco fans, bless their heart, thought he was the second coming of every great quarterback ever, and that he was hands down better than Josh Allen. Josh Allen was terrible. Drew Locke was the truth. Drew Locke was the truth. Just to get off track real here from Joseph. Smash that like button. Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate you. You're a good person. Thank you so much. So it's been interesting to see the year that Drew Locke has had. He's had some injuries. He's had some COVID quarantines. He's been very turnover prone. And as we come into this game, the Denver offense, led by Drew Locke in this game, as pointed out by Sal Capaccio, great follow on Twitter, they're almost a pretty dynamic difference and an interesting juxtaposition when you put them up against the Steelers offense that the Bills faced last week. The Steelers offense, as we talked about on last week's episode and was talked about several times throughout the game on Sunday Night Football last week, the Steelers offense was predicated on quick throws. Ben Roethlisberger had the quickest and the shortest snap to throw time in the NFL at 2.29 seconds. They had the majority of their throws and passing completions were under 10 yards or around the line of scrimmage. They were a team that was based on snap it, take a couple steps, get it out right away. They were a quick strike, quick attack offense. The Denver Broncos here are somewhat the opposite of that. Drew Locke, 17.6% of Drew Locke's passes come greater than 20 yards. He leads the league in that metric. 17.6% of his passes are thrown above 20 yards. Quite the opposite of Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers offense. Also, Drew Locke has a 9.5 average intended air yards per throw, second behind only Joe Flacco, which is second, but also kind of not, because Joe Flacco's sample size is much smaller. He's only played a handful of games, and in those games, the Jets got down big time, and he just started chucking it deep to Rashard Perryman. So it's a little skewed. So Locke is in the upper echelon in terms of deep throws above 20 yards, average intended air yards. This is a team that on offense, at least in the passing game, and also emphasized by Drew Locke's completion percentage, which is one of the worst in the NFL. It's the second worst in the NFL. He has a 57.8 completion percentage. Part of that is due to some accuracy things, but also part of it is just due to the stats I already mentioned. They go deep, they stretch the field, they go vertical, they work the intermediate to the deep more than they do the short to intermediate. And when you do that naturally, you just have a higher probability of throwing an incomplete pass. And then if you're off with your mechanics or your reads or timing or anything like that, it's even harder to complete those deep throws. The Denver Bronco offense, they are 31st in offensive DVOA, 29th in passing DVOA, 26th in rushing DVOA. They are 27th in the NFL in passing yards per game with 211.5. Again, some of those passing numbers skewed, especially by that New Orleans game where they played with a wide receiver at quarterback and basically ran wildcat for the heavy majority of that game with Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. They are 13th in rushing yards per game with 117.2 rushing yards per game. And their red zone stats are a little interesting. They are 26th in the NFL in red zone percentage in terms of converting to touchdowns, but they're only 4 percentage points behind the Buffalo Bills. The bigger story is they are 31st in total red zone attempts. They are at the bottom of the league when it comes to red zone attempts. They don't move the ball particularly well. They tend to stall out a bit in their offense, as we're going to get into some metrics later about yards per drive and points per drive. So when they get there, not terrible. Again, they're only 4 percentage points behind the Bills in terms of converting their red zone attempts into touchdowns, but getting them there has been the bigger struggle for the Denver Bronco offense. They're 29th in yards per drive, averaging 29.9 yards per drive. For reference, the Bills are 4th in the NFL in terms of yards per drive on offense, averaging 38.6 yards per drive. The Denver Broncos are 31st in points per drive, averaging 1.7 points per drive. Again, for reference with the Bills are 5th in the NFL in points per drive with 2.26. The Denver Broncos are also 31st in plays per drive, averaging 5.61 plays per drive. For reference, again, the Buffalo Bills are 6th in the NFL, averaging 6.6 yards per drive. Also, the Denver Broncos offense, they give up the most interceptions per drive in the NFL at 0.142. The Bills are middle of the pack, giving up 0.070 interceptions per drive. Again, a lot of that comes from Drew Locke himself. He has 13 interceptions on the year, which is a lot considering he's officially played 10 games, but it's really only 9.5 because he got injured in one and didn't finish. He's been turnover prone, as he was last year. Part of the knock against him from several pundits, myself included, when it came to the Drew Locke, Josh Allen debate, was how turnover prone Drew Locke was last year in his limited time in terms of fumbles and interceptions. The interceptions have reared their ugly head again for him this year. You see it in the interceptions per drive and just in Drew Locke being one of the league leaders in interceptions on the year, despite the fact that he's played a decent amount of games less than the other players, the other quarterbacks in that category with him. Drew Locke is 27th in the NFL in DYAR. For reference, Josh Allen is 5th. He's 27th in quarterback DVOA. Josh Allen is 6th again. And as I mentioned earlier, Drew Locke has the second worst completion percentage in the NFL with 57.8 of his passes being completed. For reference, again, Josh Allen is 11th in the NFL with 68.6% of his passes being completed. I'm starting to see the comments flow in. I love it, and I will get to those comments. I'm excited. Actually, I'm going to bring this one up from David Jones here. Let's just hope we don't look past this game. Excellent point. I mentioned that on the lead-in, and I don't think we can look past anyone. I don't think anyone should look past anyone. And again, I mentioned it might be because of my paranoia-riddled Buffalo Bills fandom brain. But in the NFL, especially today, unless you're, no offense and knock on wood, unless you're the Jets, almost every team has a shot to get a victory here. We've seen multiple games in multiple weeks this year in the NFL where we think, oh, well, Team A is going to destroy Team B. And it's been literally the opposite. This is a week-to-week league. Any team could be beaten. Any team can take a loss. It doesn't matter how invincible we think they are or how they look. And we shouldn't look past that game. I see a comment here coming from Lone Wolf. If Locke is that inaccurate, why doesn't he get reeled in a bit? Get him to throw the shorter ones and move the chains. One, I think it's the style of offense they play in terms of what they are trying to do. And also a bit of Locke's mentality and a bit of the weaponry they have. I think when you look at Denver, despite the injuries they've had, and that's also another piece to get into, if you're looking at their offense holistically, and I'm going to mention some of the pieces in a bit, they've got good weapons. Their backfield, I know it's not maybe the best backfield in the NFL, but a 1-2 punch of Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay is a pretty good backfield. Phillip Lindsay, I think, I don't want to say he doesn't get the credit he deserves, but I think he's a better back than he gets credit for. I think he's more than just a scat back and a speed guy. He can bust off some runs between the tackles, and he's got good enough speed to stretch runs into 20 and 40-yard gains. Melvin Gordon has been a stud in the NFL before, and I know he's fallen off a little bit since all the injuries that he's accumulated and since leaving San Diego and now going to Denver. And then when you look at the outside weaponry, I know they lost Cortland Sutton to start the year, as did my fantasy football team, but Hamler has tremendous speed. He showed that last week on his touchdown against Carolina. Jerry Jeudy is an awesome rookie, one of the best route runners in the NFL already, despite the fact that he hasn't even completed a full NFL season. Noah Fant is a very good receiving tight end, although he comes into this game banged up. Tim Patrick, their third receiver, I guess technically if you want to look at it on the team, is a big-bodied guy who's shown some real athleticism throughout the year this year and some tremendous hands. A guy that really came out of nowhere. Everybody was talking about coming into the year, Fant and Sutton and Hamler and Jeudy and Gordon and Lindsay, like I just did. But Tim Patrick has been a bit of a diamond in the rough for the Bronco offense. And to go back to your initial comment there, Lone Wolf, of if Locke isn't accurate, why doesn't he get reeled in a bit? I think the talent that they have speaks to kind of the scheme of the offense and what they can do. When you've got a guy like Hamler that can stretch the field as good as he can, and with what Jeudy can do, combined with the fact that they're young, it's easier to just, let's call some deep routes and just send them on a go, or let's use their speed to try and take advantage of the scheme that we're facing on defense or take advantage of the corners. Also added into that is they've been down a decent amount in a significant amount of their games. And when that happens, you tend to just start going for the moon, especially if you're a young second-year quarterback like Locke, who loves to just sling it all around the field. Drew Locke is similar to young Josh Allen in the mentality of, let's just sling it around and see what we can do and what we can get. Sometimes he tries to play hero ball every now and again. We saw that happen in the game against the Chiefs that the Broncos almost won. Locke had a couple turnovers in that game that really shouldn't have happened, and it was just a young QB trying to make a throw that he really had no business trying to make. And it's a long, complicated answer, but I think that's part of it. And he does have a big arm, and he can make some plays. They're a risk-reward offense. That's a bit of the scheme, but they're going to take those shots, and it's up to Buffalo to make sure that they don't complete them, and we take advantage of that inaccuracy and that inefficiency. Mention some of the pieces on offense in terms of the weaponry for Drew Locke and Drew Locke himself. But someone on the Bronco offense who is having a fantastic year is left tackle Garrett Bowles. In November, he inked a 4-year, $68 million extension. He's having, again, as I mentioned, a tremendous year. He is the 6th best graded offensive lineman in the entire NFL. I'm not talking tackles. I'm talking centers, guards, tackles. He is the 6th best graded offensive lineman in the entire league. He's the 3rd best overall graded tackle. He has the 5th best pass blocking grade amongst all offensive linemen in the entire league. 4th best pass blocking grade amongst tackles. He has the 12th best overall run blocking grade for any offensive lineman in the NFL, and he's tied for 7th in run block amongst tackles. He's allowed only 11 pressures on the entire year in the 12 games that he's played, and he's allowed no sacks. Well worth the extension that he got. A good draft pick by Denver, and someone who wanted a bigger contract, but Denver didn't necessarily think they were going to invest in him. He's done very, very well, and he is a solid anchor on that offensive line. The metrics speak to it. He passes the eye test. Really good dude, really good player on that side, especially at a key position on the offense like left tackle. Garrett Bowles is great, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of pressure the Bills defense can generate on the Denver Broncos, and especially trying to get through Garrett Bowles because he's been a linchpin and an anchor on that side of the ball. And when we look at Drew Locke and the Denver offense, the matchup starts to come in with the Bills defense. The Bills defense has strung together solid performance after solid performance, really going back to that first Jets game. I mentioned it in the last several episodes, and I know the Jets are terrible, but they had a tremendous second half. They looked good in certain key points of the game against Arizona, against Seattle, against the Niners. I know what the final score lines look like, but there was a lot of garbage time yards and a lot of garbage time scoring that happened in those games. We saw what the Bills did last week against Pittsburgh, and I know Pittsburgh's offense isn't an offense that's going to set the world on fire and that's going to put up 40 a game. That's not how they're built this year in terms of their pieces and in terms of their scheme and structure. But the Bills defense has done their job week in and week out, and they come into this game now 15th in points per game with 24.7, 16th in defensive DVOA. Going into the Seattle Seahawks game multiple weeks ago, they were 23rd in defensive DVOA. They're 15th in passing DVOA, 17th in rush defense DVOA. They are 21st in yards per drive, giving up an average of 36.6 yards per drive. But I think that's, again, skewed by the garbage time yardage they give up. They're also 22nd in points per drive given up with 2.41, skewed again because of the garbage time. And they're 20th in plays per drive given up with 6.41. But again, they've been strong as of late. Really good performance against Pittsburgh last week, especially with how Pittsburgh was pressuring Josh Allen in the first half. Allen was inefficient. The offense looked stagnant. They were backed up. They just could not string drives together, get first downs together, really generate any points other than 3 at the end of the first half. The Bills defense kept them in it. The only points they gave up in the first half was off of that turnover that started the Steelers in Buffalo territory right off the bat. And I know in that situation, you'd like to see a good defense step up and, in a perfect world, get a takeaway or somehow force a punt, or at the very least, not allow the touchdown and try and make the offense settle for a field goal attempt. But the Bills defense did their job, and they kept Buffalo in that game. We've seen Tremaine Edmonds round out into form over the last several weeks. We talked about it last week on the show as he has seemingly gotten healthier from that early season shoulder injury. He has played much better. He has started to look like the player that we had thought he would be coming into this year. Again, with that injury combined with just playing a difficult position in the NFL at middle linebacker and being the signal caller and being the guy who has to use a lot of cognitive function and ability on the field in addition to the physical, it just seemed like all of that combined with the shoulder injury, he was thinking too much on the field. You could almost see him thinking instead of reacting, instead of playing and shooting gaps and being explosive and making tackles. And over the last several weeks, again, it might coincide with the overall better play of the defense, or maybe someone gave him a kick in the pants and he wisened up a little bit, or it could just be because of that shoulder getting healthier. I think the shoulder plays a big part in that. He's gotten better, and Matt Milano coming back has helped. And the fact that A.J. Klein continues to play strong to the point that we're allowed to ease Matt Milano back into the defense. Comment here from Lone Wolf. Nice to see the Bills D shaping up in the part of the season that really counts, all caps with the really. That's 100%. As we get towards the home stretch of the regular season and move into the playoffs, we need the D rounding into form and supplementing the strong play of the Bills offense. Comment here from Handsome Man. No training camp, no preseason. They are peaking at the right time, just getting comfortable with each other. That's a very good point as well. You've got guys that are having to find a way to gel. Comment here from John, along with the donation. Thank you, John. Tremendously appreciated as always. I greatly appreciate your efforts. Bills offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach locked in. Bills won't sleep on this game. I can't believe I'm saying, but as a 51-year-old Bills fan, I trust the Bills. That's fair. I think with what McDermott and Bean have done in crafting this team and with the adjustments and the scheme ability we've seen from Leslie Frazier and Brian Daboll, Bills coordinators respectively, that's fair for them to have earned your trust and for you to have some faith in them. I've said it here and I've said it on Twitter for a while. It seemed like we were captainless at the helm of the ship. And I feel comfortable knowing that we are in Sean McDermott's and Brandon Bean's hands. And I feel comfortable with Frazier and comfortable with Daboll. And it seems starting at the top, the Bills have that semblance of stability and leadership that we've been lacking for so long. And at a certain point, no matter how much talent you put on the field or how good your players are, if you don't have that leadership, at some point things fall apart. It also helps that our leadership is also good at coaching up talent and identifying talent via the draft or free agency or trades. But for you, John, as a 51-year-old Bills fan, you trust the Bills. I'm a bit younger, but I trust the Bills as well. I'm going to knock on wood because, as it says in my Twitter bio, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. But in reality, I am very superstitious. And to go back from the comments there from Lone Wolf and from Handsome Man, the Bills D is rounding into form at a very key and important stretch of the year. Again, as we go into the playoffs, there is much less room for error, much less room for mistakes. And there isn't any, well, we'll take a look at the film and clean it up next week. Because if you were so messy in the game before, there is no next week and you go home. And the AFC East is a gauntlet this year. Every team top to bottom has at least one side of the ball that is extremely strong, or one side of the ball at the very least that poses a problem for teams to have to defend and or play against. So the Bills need to be clicking on all cylinders as much as possible, and the defense is a large part of that. It also helps that the defense, again, has started to get healthy. Milano coming back, A.J. Klein playing strong to allow Milano to be eased back in so that he doesn't have to rush things back right away, and we can continue to utilize him to his strengths without having to stress him physically too much and allow him to play while also still heal. Vernon Butler has been outstanding the last several weeks. He's had a couple big, huge flash plays, one against the Niners where he blew up Tevin Coleman in the backfield, one last week where he drove Dotson, the offensive guard for the Steelers, all the way back into James Conner. Just tremendous plays from defensive tackle, which we've needed because we've needed that inside stability where we've been gashed multiple times all throughout the year. Taron Johnson has gotten stronger as of late. He had that pick 6 last week, but he had a lot of good plays coming forward and making tackles in the backfield. Jordan Poyer's been solid all year. Trey is getting better in terms of his physicality. He jacked up Chase Claypool last week, had some good coverage. And another interesting point, we're seeing that Josh Norman, Levi Wallace timeshare. We saw it a little bit last week. They rotated some series, and Norman had 2 targets last week, allowing 1 catch. Levi had 6 targets last week, allowing 2 catches. I know Levi got beat a bit in the 49ers game. I thought the pass interference call against him was a bit harsh and a bit unfair on the Niners' first drive, but then he got beat deep on the Ayuk catch up the sideline. And it looked from the outside, or if you took a snapshot, that he had a bit of a rough game, but he's been stronger as of late. And Adam Gibbons, heck yes for Vernon Butler. Yeah, cheers for Vernon Butler. Shout-outs to him. And Lone Wolf, I'm going on 57, John. I'm right there with you. John, you and Lone Wolf are in the same boat in terms of finally trusting the Bills. And Lone Wolf's comment again, captainless. We had Rex Ryan. I drank the Ryan Kool-Aid a little bit. Not as much of the bluster and how braggadocious he was on the mic, but just from a scheme ability thought, I really thought we were in good hands with Rex, and I was really, really mistaken. Sadly mistaken. Comment from John McDermott and Bean. I have no words for those two and the team they assembled. 1,000%. And then another donation here from John. Again, thank you so much. Tremendous. Anthony, what is the weakness of this team? I'd say tight end, but Knox has touchdowns, 438, and 40 DPI the last few weeks. Vernon Butler, Ed, and 49. Tremaine Edmonds have been sick lately. They have it all potentially. That's a very good question. What is the weakness of this team? As of this moment right now, I'm still not fully on board with the defense. And if I'm really getting pressed, I'm still a little worried about the run defense for the Bills. Not having Star or not having that big-bodied one tech is something that still gives me a bit of cause for concern. And I'm looking at potential playoff matchups right now, which is a fun thing to do as a Bills fan, to start thinking about who do we get matched up in the playoffs against? What's the best thing to say? And I look at a team like Cleveland, and although I don't believe in Baker Mayfield, their run game is so strong. Their offensive line is so good. Going up against a team like Cleveland scares me, that running potential. Facing Tennessee again, even though I'm not the biggest believer in Ryan Tannehill, knowing how they can run the ball, having to potentially play against Baltimore, knowing how they're going to stress you with their running game. And although the Bills defense was good against Baltimore last year and provided the blueprint and the scheme for the Titans to beat Baltimore in the playoffs last year, I look at the teams that the Bills can play in the playoffs, and a good amount of them can all run the ball. And if you look at Kansas City, the first time they beat us was because they decided just to run the ball. And if they don't decide to run the ball, they have the best quarterback in the NFL and some of the best weaponry and coaching in the NFL. So that's what scares me, the potential susceptibility to the running game, especially as you get into the proverbial and the stereotypical playoff weather and atmosphere and cold weather games, and you got to run the ball and so on and so forth. If we get into a game where there's bad weather, or whether it's high winds or rain or snow, and it comes down to running the football game, I'm a little worried still for the defense. And a couple comments here. Fair to say the weakness of this team is linebacker as a whole. We're top heavy at linebacker, and if Edmonds isn't crushing it, that hurts us big time. And if Klein isn't killing it, that hurts us big time. If Milano isn't healthy, that has the potential to hurt. That's fair to say. I think the linebackers have played better as of late, and I feel better knowing that Dodson has come back as well. But they are top heavy in the linebacker department. And Lone Wolf, going back to the weakness of this team, tackling maybe, that's also a concern for me, but less because of the Bills themselves and more just today's NFL. Especially even if there was a full training camp and regular practices and everything, because of the training camp agreements and everything between the NFL and NFLPA, there isn't the same amount of tackling being practiced and live tackling and live repetition when it comes to tackling. And I think that's why you've seen tackling as a technique and a skill in the NFL as a whole drop off significantly since the 80s and 90s and even in the 2000s. So tackling is a weakness for a decent amount of teams. And to your point, Lone Wolf, when the Bills have been gashed, whether in the run game or in the pass game, they've been gashed because they miss tackles. And the Bills defense, we know what it does to a certain degree, which is they're not going to give up the big play. They're going to make you beat them surgically or with precision. We saw it against Kansas City is a really good blueprint for that. Didn't want to get beat deep, didn't want to get beat and gashed with the pass and the big chunk plays. So it was like, okay, let's have you beat us with the run or beat us with the short pass. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire broke tackle after tackle, and we saw Travis Kelce break tackles. That's a big thing. That's a good point, Lone Wolf. And that worries me a bit. That's a secondary concern to the run game. I know the run defense has been stronger as of late, but it's still a concern in the back of my mind. I'm still fearful of that lack of a one tech hurting us and eventually coming through. John with the comment, I agree, but prayers up for sure. Paulie J, Star for sure, hurt us up the middle. I think it's cool that, and a comment here just came from Handsome Man. Do you think they missed Latulele as far as a missing tackle? To go from that comment and from Paulie, yeah, 1,000%. Star is a guy who I've spoken about at length on Twitter and even in the show to a degree that he wasn't really fully appreciated when he came onto the Bills. I know his stats aren't necessarily there and he wasn't, throwing up 12 sacks a year and getting all these pressures like Aaron Donald, but he did a bunch of dirty work, and his play allowed for Tremaine Edmonds and Milano and Poyer to play free and not have to wade through as much trash and not have to get hit as much and contacted as much from the interior line. He just was a big body who played his role, which was plug the middle, take up blockers, and allow the playmakers to succeed. He performed some level of disruption, and I think for sure not having him there has hurt us more than anybody potentially hurt us. Comment here from Justin. I finally watched Mel Kiper's rant on Get Up with those three clowns. Dominique Foxworth, Ryan Clark, and Desmond Howard would all rather have Lamar over Josh Allen. Why do you think that is? I think, one, a lot of people who are still picking people over Josh Allen is because just individual personalities don't want to admit when there's fault. I think it's hard for people to admit when they're wrong, and everybody and their mother all thought Josh Allen was going to kind of be a bust and that he was inaccurate to the point that he could never fix his inaccuracy. And what's the comment from the one article about Josh Allen, that if Josh Allen succeeds in the NFL, he will have defeated math itself or something along those lines. He was easy fodder for jokes and memes about inaccuracy and how terrible he was, and people don't want to get off of their initial analysis and backtrack a bit. In that particular example there with everybody taking Lamar over Josh Allen, I think it's the electricity. Lamar coming off of a record-setting year where he won MVP. I understand why people are going to pick Lamar over Josh Allen. He's still more of a prime time kind of guy, I think, in the mind of the national media. And Justin, I see your comment again, except for Mel Kiper, he knew Josh Allen was going to be a superstar. He did. He 1,000% defended him when the Bills drafted him, and in the draft analysis show later in the offseason and the year after. He's been great with that. I think, yeah, Lamar, in that particular example, Lamar's electric. No matter what we think of him as a passer, he can change the game at any moment purely off of his running ability. If he can just pass halfway decent, he's so hard to defend. And he's so fast and so electric and so agile, and he's fun, and he does a lot of great things that causes analysts to drool over. And so I think it's easy for the national media to jump on that and like someone like that over Josh Allen. I'm also going to say that there's still some level of stigma attached to the Bills as a whole. How much did we see leading up to that Steelers game where analysts said, oh, well, the Bills need like a signature win against the Steelers? And it was like, what? They've had a bunch of real quality wins all throughout the year. And then we saw analysts discount certain things. I forget who said it, but someone pointed out like, oh, they don't need signature wins. They beat in Seattle and they beat in the Rams. And then the other person counter was like, yeah, but the Rams was earlier in the year. So like that doesn't count. There's just comments like that tend to negate the success that Josh Allen has made, or Buffalo as a whole. Again, we're not a sexy city. I don't think we're a sexy team. And there's always going to be that stigma attached to us of not being taken seriously and being a joke and ha ha ha, 4 Super Bowl losses, laugh out loud. Even that's something that will forever bother me. Going to 4 straight Super Bowls is a tremendous accomplishment. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bills fan. I know that they lost them all and did not win one. But going 4 years in a row is such an impressive accomplishment, and it will not get talked about because we lost all of them, which I understand. But that's just what the Bills are, and they get overlooked, and it's going to continue for a great while. Justin, great response. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Going up to some other comments. Ed Oliver comments here. Ed has been filling in nicely. His stats might not be there, but he's putting in work. He is. He's getting double teamed a lot. He's wearing hats that he necessarily isn't comfortable wearing or shouldn't have to wear, but he's doing his job. He's made some big flash plays, and it's good to see. A couple more comments from John. The strength of this team, cover 1, especially Eric Turner, film breakdown, and Anthony here and Buffalo Fanatics. If the Bills are as good as y'all, we beat everyone. Great show. Thank you, John. Thank you for your support with cover 1 as well. I love being part of this group and in this brand and this network, and it's awesome. Another comment here from John. How crazy is it that Baltimore, Cleveland, and Tennessee could be 5, 6, and 7 pending the Colts? Yeah, it's a tough stretch. No matter who the Bills get faced or matched up against in the first round, it's going to be a tough matchup, and there's no one that we can overlook really at all. Continue on the Josh Allen talk. Lone Wolf, did anybody really see Josh Allen improving this much? I thought he would be better this year, but I didn't see this coming. Fair point. I'm going to go with Justin's comment here. I definitely didn't think he would be this good this year, and he hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. And response here from Lone Wolf, and that's a scary thought for everyone else to kind of hone in on that overall conversation Justin and Lone Wolf just had. Yeah, I second that. My biggest thing coming into this year was what jump would Josh Allen take? I thought that if he made a jump similar in year 3 this year, like he made from year 1 to year 2, the Bills would be golden. But I was just hoping for, and maybe it's because I don't like to get my hopes up, but I was hoping for, give me like 60% completion percentage so everybody can shut up about him being inaccurate. Give me 30 passing touchdowns, maybe 34 touchdowns overall. Give me under 10 interceptions. Just give me 4,000 passing yards. I wasn't anticipating this level of mechanical improvement, of his readability of the defense, of his overall poise and decision-making in the pocket, of his just improvement in his mental ability to play quarterback. That's been my biggest thing for Josh Allen. And I don't think anyone, to go back to the original comment there, I don't think anybody saw Josh Allen improving this much. Even the most optimistic of fans or analysts. And I know some people had him pegged for MVP. It's fair to you guys for that prediction. But it's hard for anyone to really sit there and honestly say they thought Allen was going to have the year that he's having. And the year that he's having is a potential MVP season, record-breaking games for the franchise and for the quarterback position in the NFL as a whole. He's crushed it. And knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood for that because, again, I am superstitious. But he made a massive jump. I think a lot of us were just hoping another jump this year similar to the jump he made last year from the previous year. And instead, we got like a double or triple jump. And again, the mechanical improvement has been so great. And the mental aspect, he is mentally playing quarterback. And that's one of the biggest things when it comes to that position. We always talk about, and to a fair point, we talk about mechanics and accuracy and arm angle and all of that stuff and arm strength and everything, like the physical tools. But such an important part of the quarterback position is that mental piece, how you can read a defense, how you can adjust post-snap based on a look that you thought you were going to get, but you didn't get. Can you make pre-snap identifications and be on the same page with your team? I also think Stephon Diggs has tremendously helped that, and I don't think we thought Diggs was going to have the year that he had. He's just exploded and crushed it. And to Paulie's comment here, he had that I need it all now mentality. Now he's more of I'm taking what the defense is giving me. That's 1,000% on point there, Paulie. I will always remember the Peyton Manning Super Bowl victory against the Chicago Bears, where the Bears continued to sit in the Tampa 2, and all Peyton Manning did was snap the ball and hit little 5-yard dump-offs to Joseph Adai, who would then run for 7 or 8 yards. The Bears did not adjust. Peyton Manning won MVP with 2 touchdowns and 2 INTs, and not a very impressive game, but all he did was just keep taking what the defense gave him, and he won a Super Bowl. Take it how you can get it. That's such a great point, Paulie. Take what the defense gives you. If they give you the deep ball, hit the deep ball. If they give you wide open guys at 5 yards underneath, dump it off to Cole Beasley and Devin Singletary and whoever else and let them run for another 5 yards or even another 2 yards. Worst case scenario, you just got 5 yards. Take what the defense gives you. That's part of it in what I was talking about with the mental game of quarterback. He has gotten stronger mentally in his ability to mentally play the quarterback position, and it's been tremendous. And I love all the comments that everyone's been throwing through. Apologies if I missed anything. I am going to circle back through things. Thank you very much. This has been fun. We started talking about Josh Allen in the comments, and that's a good segue to the Broncos defense and its relation to the Bills offense. Coming into this game, the Denver Bronco defense, they're 13th in DVOA, 8th in passing DVOA, 25th in rush defense DVOA. Again, for reference, the Bills' overall defensive DVOA is 16th, so the Broncos are 3 points ahead, higher than the Bills, or 3 spots, I should say. Granted, a lot of the Bills' advanced metrics are heavily influenced by how much they struggled earlier in the year. Bronco defense, 23rd in points per game allowed with 26.7, 10th in yards per drive allowed with 32.13, 17th in points per drive allowed with 2.26. They come into this game missing starting corner A.J. Boye, who is on a 6-game PED suspension. They also miss Bryce Callahan, who is another corner for the Broncos, who has the overall 12th best cover grade in the NFL and 3rd amongst QBs. He has an injury. He is on IR. He is out. Justin is getting ahead of me a little bit here. Bradley Chubb and Vic Fangio are a problem. Bradley Chubb, defensive end for kind of outside linebacker-ish for the Denver Broncos, and Vic Fangio, head coach, awesome defensive guru. They are a problem. Good call. Continuing on that, the Broncos are 8th in the NFL in sacks with 36. For reference, the Bills are 14th with 31. Also impressive with the Broncos here, they are the 4th best coverage team in terms of overall grade in the NFL. The Bills are 18th. The Broncos have the 9th best pass rush grade. The Bills are 3rd. Broncos are 24th in the NFL in interceptions with 8. Part of that coverage scheme for the Broncos, and a real playmaker, in addition to Bradley Chubb, we're going to get into briefly, but Justin Simmons, safety for the Denver Broncos, he is phenomenal. Signed a franchise tag earlier this offseason. He has the 18th best cover grade in the whole league. I'm talking amongst all defensive players who get graded for coverage. He's 4th among safeties in cover grade. He has the 9th best tackling grade in the entire NFL, 8th best among safeties. He has the 11th best run defense grade in the entire NFL, 3rd among safeties. His overall defensive grade in the entire NFL is 22nd, and he's 5th among safety. Both of those are higher in reality because there's some dudes ahead of him that only have like 2 or 3 games played, so the sample size is smaller. But Justin Simmons is a phenomenal safety. He impacts that defense greatly. The majority of coverage snaps that the Broncos have played on defense are cover one, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, meaning they're going to play that man-to-man with a single high free safety, and Justin Simmons is that single high free safety. He's versatile. He is attack-minded, but he's smart. He's savvy. He's really, really, really a good quality player and someone that the Bills are going to have to watch and be worried about. He's the 7th highest paid safety in the league right now because of that franchise tag. He's strong. He's a good player. He's somebody that, again, Josh Allen's going to have to key in on and watch for. But I think with how banged up the corner position is, it limits his effectiveness somewhat. but he can still impact a game. Bradley Chubb, as mentioned by Justin in the chat earlier, the 5th overall pick in the 2018 draft. He leads the Denver Broncos with 8 sacks and 53 pressures. Within those 53 pressures, he has 36 hurries and 9 quarterback hits. He's a force coming off the edge. Not as much without Von Miller. It's a scarier defense when you've got Chubb and Von Miller coming off your edges, going after your quarterback. But Chubb's able to get some things done on his own. Again, 8 sacks at this point of the year isn't anything to sneeze at. If you come in with double-digit sacks every year, that's impressive. I take that out of guys. That's a good year. He's a good rusher, quality rusher. I spoke about coverage a bit for the Denver Broncos. The majority of their coverage is split between 3 coverage schemes on the back end. They've had 455 pass snaps on the year. They have been in cover 1 127 times, cover 4 99 times, and cover 3 91 times. So those are the 3 primary modes of coverage. Again, allowing Justin Simmons to primarily roam that middle of the field in some shape or form and be able to knock out really a third of the field in the middle or a quarter. He roams. He does a lot of things. He'll come up on the line of scrimmage or just sit back in the free safety role. Someone I'm excited to watch for the Denver Broncos. They are 17th in blitz percentage in the NFL. They blitz 28.4% of the time. So majority of the time they're rushing 4 or less. For reference, the Bills are 7th in the NFL in blitz percentage with 37.2 blitz percentage there. And just to go with some things here for the Bills offense, which you've talked about a little bit, and we're going to discuss a little bit after. The Bills offense is 3rd in the NFL in passing yards per game with 272.8 passing yards per game, 22nd in the NFL with 102.5 yards per game, although they have been effective the last several weeks when they've run the ball. So I don't think the total rushing yards per game really reflect how strong that they've been recently in running the ball with both Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. They're 7th in the NFL in offensive DVOA, 4th in the pass, 21st in the rush. Stephon Diggs going into tonight before the Raiders-Chargers game led the league in catches with 100. He should be second after tonight because Keenan Allen, I believe, had like 2 or 3 catches already on the first drive, and he was at 99 before the night started. Stephon Diggs is also 3rd amongst all receivers, receivers and tight ends. So anybody who catches the ball in receiving yards, he is 3rd in the NFL with that. And I also wanted to highlight the play of Daryl Williams, who's been phenomenal for the Bills this year. Right tackle that the Bills got from Carolina in the offseason. Last week, he held T.J. Watt, who is arguably the best edge rusher in the NFL. One of the favorites for Defensive Player of the Year, along with Aaron Donald, a monster and a force off the edge in a variety of factors in a variety of ways. Daryl Williams held him to one of, if not his lowest grade in the entire year. I know Watt got to Allen a little bit, but he was largely ineffective, and a lot of that was due to Daryl Williams. His play at right tackle has been tremendous and is one of the reasons that I feel somewhat confident going against the Denver defense in this game, with their secondary being banged up the way it is and having Dawkins on the left and Daryl Williams on the right. With how strong they've been, it makes the effectiveness of Bradley Chubb and his potential to wreck some things for the Bills offense, it reduces that impact of Bradley Chubb. So Daryl Williams is somebody who needs to be appreciated for what he's done, and is somebody who, when we go into this upcoming offseason, I know initially when we were talking about salary cap this offseason and reduce salary cap next year and who we pay and how do we pay and this and that, a lot of it came down to like, do we keep Matt Milano? Can we? What do we do? That was already happening. Now you've also added Daryl Williams into that conversation, and now it's a point of, can we keep Milano and Williams? Do we have to pick one? Also, we got Feliciano. Who do we pay? Tackle is a premium position. Left is more premium than right, but right is still important, and Daryl Williams has had a very, very strong year, and his play last week against T.J. Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers really emphasized that, as Justin mentions here in the chat. Oh, sorry. Whoa, here we go. I hope Daryl Williams signs long-term this offseason. I kind of do too. Comment here from Joseph that I originally clicked. Think we have enough to keep Milano and Williams. The Bills have multiple avenues where, and Greg Thompson from Cover One did a phenomenal breakdown of this in an episode with Anthony Marino on the Buffalo Rumblings podcast. And Greg also has broken down several tweets about this as well. There are a lot of potential opportunities to get creative with the cap in the offseason for the Bills to keep both guys. I don't want to get, if I really broke it down here, I'd be talking for like another 20 minutes because there's a lot to it. But long story short, and we will get into some cap things as we go towards the offseason because I'm a cap nerd. I spend a lot of time on Spot Track and Over the Cap and all those sites. There are some things the Bills can do to get creative with the salary cap and do some things. And there's a realistic possibility that we can keep Milano and Williams. And as much as it sucks that Milano's been hurt, and I don't want to sound insensitive saying this, the injuries that Milano had this year only hurt his value and heighten the possibility that we can get him either for cheaper in the short term or add more years to a potential deal. His average annual value coming into the year was roughly like $13 million. So coming into the year, if you were going to re-sign him, it was looking like a 3-year, $40 million deal, something like that. Those numbers have changed based on the year that he's had, but I would like to keep both of them. Matt Milano is arguably my favorite Bill, but I recognize the importance of the offensive line. And a couple comments here, like this one coming from JM. Feliciano is more important than Milano. Yeah, offensive line is good comment here from John as well. I was literally going to say this. Feliciano can play center, and he brings the nasty on the O-line. O-line is a comment here from Lone Wolf. Magic Bean will make it work, whoever we decide to keep. That goes back to the original statement, too, and trusting the leadership and the direction of the team. I trust the decisions that Bean will make. But, yeah, it's when you've got a guy like Josh Allen, who, for all intents and purposes, and I see some comments coming through in the chat as well about how we have to pay Josh Allen, what kind of salary he's going to command. At the end of the day, so me personally, I'm a defense guy. I love defense. It's the side of the ball that I am most in love with. I love defensive football games. I know they may be boring to some, but give me a 10-7 game where both teams are just tackling well and hitting the heck out of each other. That's an awesome football game to me. I like shootouts as well, but I love good defense. I love it. I love it. I love it. But for all intents and purposes, the identity of this football team now and going forward for the significant future is Josh Allen. And within that, you have to protect and support Josh Allen, which means the offensive line needs to be strong and the weaponry needs to be strong. Granted, you still have to have good players on the defensive side of the ball, because if you're giving up 7 every time, it's tough to match that all the time on the offensive side of the ball. And that, in a way, puts more pressure on Josh Allen. But you got to protect him. Feliciano being able to play center and play guard, and he's strong at guard, as JM mentioned here in the chat, and he brings a nastiness to the offensive line. His impact on the run game was immediate as soon as he suited up for the Bills. So he makes a big difference. And Daryl Williams makes a difference as well, but I trust in Bean. I think he can get the job done and find a way to restructure some things. Another thing that's going to go, oh man, everybody's reading my mind on this episode tonight. Lone Wolf, I heard somewhere that the cap should be around $195 million next season as long as all games are played this season. That's the big thing that I was just going to get into. So some original projections going into the year were that the cap was going to be around 175. That was going to hamstring almost everyone. The cap was supposed to go up every single year, like 198 million and then 200, I believe, 11 in 2022 and continue to go up as TV deals come through and money and revenue comes in. If the cap next offseason is 195, as Lone Wolf mentioned, which is one of the current rumors and things going on right now, all of those possibilities of Feliciano, Milano, and Daryl Williams, they're not guaranteed, but the probability and likelihood of them happening are significantly increased because all those moves that Magic Bean can work and the wizardry that he can do in the cap and deals and restructuring things for some players and giving certain players like Stephon Diggs potentially giving him an extension and restructuring the guaranteed money and how it falls and how it's layered. Doing several of those things obviously become much, much easier and much more possible if the cap is up anywhere towards where it normally was supposed to be, let alone if it's up to 195. That is the best bet. Everybody and their mother should be praying for that we can have that 195 million cap next year. It would do so many wonders and do so many things for the Buffalo Bills. I want to go back to some comments here. Ian Janicki, is John Brown going to be playing this week? No, he is not. Sean McDermott came out and was very forthcoming already in the week saying that John Brown would not be playing this week, which is fine. Let him be 100% healthy come playoff time. He's a guy that will make a difference for the Bills offense. And we talked last week about the narrative of the Bills offense being awful without John Brown. He makes a difference. I know we talk about his deep threat ability and his ability to stretch a defense and beat guys over the top, but his route running has really improved since his time in Buffalo. And he makes a big difference for this team. Getting him back at 100% is priority one. So I think they're going to let him sit and continue to rest. He's been activated in that return window from IR, but they're going to take it cautiously with him, much like they did with Matt Milano, especially after that initial re-injury. Justin, can you imagine prime Bruce Smith playing in today's NFL? I wonder about guys like Bruce because I think he would tear it up still because he's one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest rusher of all time. But also I feel like he might get flagged for roughing the passer every 2 hits. It's a different game today, which disappoints me again as a defense guy, but it's a different game. And I always have little debates with myself as to whether or not guys like that at that time in a much more physical era of the NFL, how they would succeed in today's. Another comment here from Justin, get rid of Trent Murphy and we'll be golden. I feel bad ragging on Trent Murphy, but he's been inactivated the last several weeks, and it's a real eyesore to look back on the offseason and think that we could have cut him and saved money big time. But to all fairness of Bean and McDermott, with the COVID offseason and the lack of training camp and the lack of continuity and reps for everyone in general, but especially the young guys, I don't think A.J. Epinesa was ready to assume the mantle of third on the depth chart when it comes to defensive ends. You're looking at Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison, but then after that, if you get rid of Trent, you're looking at, okay, is A.J. Epinesa ready? Is Daryl Johnson ready to assume that mantle? I think they played with the safer floor type of move and kept Murphy. And it's come back to be a little poisonous right now and bite us a little bit. But again, you look back on it with hindsight being 2020 and it is annoying. But I think at the time, I can't blame Bean and McDermott for keeping Trent Murphy, given how this offseason shook out and the expectations and contributions they were looking for from the young guys and the defensive line as a whole. Good comments here as we start to wrap up from Lone Wolf. Let's be fully healthy so we can go into Foxborough and embarrass the Pats. Pars, but I know you meant Pats. Yeah, I agree. Let's beat New England. Miami can put the nail in their coffin this week. And if they don't, we can next week. It'll be nice just to sweep the division this year. It would be great to not only sweep the division, but also obviously win the AFC East in the same year. That's a tremendous crowning moment for new AFC East champs and things happening for the future, to know that we swept the entire division and won the division in the same year. That would be fantastic. That would be great. Also, what's been great has been the engagement of everyone here on this episode of Disguised Coverage. I want to thank everyone for riding with me on this episode, whether you are listening later or watching later, whatever platform you're using. Thank you very much for all your support, the downloads, the listens, anything and everything like that. I greatly appreciate it. Everybody who rode with me here on the live stream, thank you guys so much. It's much better to do a live stream when you know there's people watching and engaging with you. Otherwise, you're just live kind of talking to yourself, and that's a little weird. So thank you to everyone for engaging with me live here on this episode. Thank you for the donations and the support. Handsome man throwing up a comment there. Another great, insightful show. Keep it up. Go Bills. Thank you very much. One more comment from Justin. 3-1 versus the NFC and AFC West, two of the best divisions in football. It's been a strong year for the Buffalo Bills. The engagement in this episode has been strong. Thank you guys so much. Please rate and review and subscribe on whatever platform you are listening or watching to this podcast on. If you're watching here on YouTube, smash that like button. It's not just for optics. It is tremendously important for the show going forward and sustainability. Thank you guys so very much for, again, your support as always. Thank you for riding with me on this episode. Enjoy the Bills game this week. Next week is Christmas time, holiday week. So hopefully we'll have some good holiday cheer to spread and talk about next week as we go into another week of the Bills. Enjoy your holiday, guys. Thank you, Justin. Take care. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays in general. Thank you very much for your support in any shape or form, everybody here. God bless you. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next week.